favorite Stoic tends to be the one that I'm reading at the time, but I'd have to say it's either Marcus Aurelius or Seneca. For those who don't know, Marcus Aurelius, he's just a fascinating character because he was the Roman emperor, and at that time, the Roman Empire rather was the most powerful on earth. So he was the
Yeah,
most powerful person on earth, and has this journal basically that he wrote, reminding himself to be humble and to be a good person and to think of other people, despite having all of that power. And I think it's a hard thing for people to grasp, but when you have that much power, it's so incredibly hard to be humble. I
yeah,
mean, you can certainly see this as you become a little bit more successful in life. You, if you're if you're conscious of yourself, you'll feel your ego start to grow a little bit, and then if you extract that out and you imagine that you're the most powerful person on the planet, and that
yeah,
being Marcus Aurelius, I mean, the amount of humility and strength and virtue that you would have to be someone like that who's still reminding himself to be a good person every day. It's just incredible. So I would say I have a lot of admiration for Marcus Aurelius, probably out of the rest, but I do like them all. I got to say, especially their
yeah,
writing. You know,
yeah. No, that's for sure. I'm assuming you've probably read Meditations.
yeah, of course, yeah, several
Yeah.
times.
One of the, I guess, like funnier like criticisms of Meditations tends to be that it's too repetitive, right?
Yeah,
But obviously, it's like it wasn't really meant to be published as a book. It's just a journal. So obviously, the day-to-day life you live tends to be sometimes repetitive, right? So it's kind of like he's just writing, I guess, in a way, he's talking about his life, right? But he's also kind of reminding himself to stay on the path, right?
yes. Well, that's the thing is, and you're absolutely right. It was a journal. It wasn't supposed to be a book. And so if you can imagine whoever you are listening to this, if you're an individual, you have things that you struggle with, some tendencies that you struggle with. Maybe you tend to sleep in a little bit too late. Maybe you tend to grab your phone too much. And if you're trying to fight those bad habits, what you have to do is you have to remind yourself to fix those bad habits every day. And so
Yeah,
if you were to write a journal, you would probably bring up every day, okay, this is something I struggle with. Remind myself not to grab my phone every 5 seconds. And it's probably something that you're going to be very repetitive about because you're trying to drill in that habit. And so Marcus Aurelius was just a person at the end of the day. And that's exactly what he was doing in that journal. It's like he had tendencies just like the rest of us do, and he's trying to remind himself so he can drill in these habits and this virtue. And that does end up being repetitive as a reader, but to me, it points to the humane element of Marcus Aurelius. Like he was an actual person. He wasn't this god, this sage.
yeah,
He was a person that struggled with things, and I kind of like that, to be honest.
yeah. I feel like that's a lot more like even though he was a king, right? It makes him a lot more relatable, right?
Yeah.
Like if you read like his life story, like he went through suffering just like anyone else. Like he lost, if I'm not mistaken, his wife at some point, his kids, right? Obviously, like at that time he was fighting the Germanic tribes, right? And like, he was losing soldiers left and right. So, had to deal with a lot of problems. Because like thing is I think a lot of people will see a king and they will think that automatically this individual is spoiled. But the thing is, when you are a king, there's also a lot of like burden of responsibility on you. And
Right.
one of the ways that when you read his life, it's like it kind of shows like how like a proper king should lead things in his life.
Yeah. No, I think he's a model for everyone, for all of us in our
Yeah,
lives. And as we if we're living such a life where we gain responsibility as we go through it, and we move up in life, maybe at your job or whatever it is, just try and be humble. Try and remind yourself that you're just a person and you're struggling with things as well, and that really we're all going to die at the end of the day. That's another thing about meditations
yeah,
and stoicism. It's like this humbling aspect of meditating on your death on a regular basis, not to get depressed, but to put things into perspective, right? That we are
yeah,
mortal, that we are going to die, and that at the end of the day, sure, I might, I don't know, make more money than you or have a higher position than you or whatever. But at the end of the day, we're all going to go to the same place, and that's 6 feet
yeah,
under. It's a very humbling idea.
yeah. I'm sure you've probably heard of the concept of Philosopher King, right?
Sorry, what's that?
Philosopher King.
No, I'm not sure. Can you explain it?
So if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Aristotle. Like he talks about like the Philosopher King, like, and I'm sure. forgot which book he exactly mentions it in, but he talks about like a utopian society, right? The only way that that could be achieved is through Philosopher King, right? And I don't know if you know this, but Marcus Aurelius is like he's usually seen as like the model head for that idea. Obviously, he didn't like live in a utopian society, but he was kind of like the idea of what a philosopher king should be.
Yes, yeah. That is ringing a bell now. Yeah, he was absolutely, and I would agree with that. I think that you, all of our leaders should be philosophers first.
Yeah,
And it's like, what does it mean to be a philosopher? It's like you're focused, you're trying to figure out what's good in the world and move towards that. And if you lose sight of that as a politician or as a leader, I can't see anywhere that you're going to go that's going to be positive because you have no direction. You're looking out for yourself and you're trying to get more power. But if you don't have this ethical framework, which really is built into the study of philosophy, I don't think it's the best approach. It's not the best solution, say, for the world. It might be best for you if you're
yeah,
the king, but for everyone else, it might not turn out so good.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, because it's like, Marcus Aurelius, if he wanted to, he could have been selfish, right? But he obviously chose not to. Like, chose to basically lead life for something beyond just himself,
Right. Yeah,
right?
for sure.